Mi smo more krvi prolili za bratstvo i jedinstvo naših naroda.
Građani, agresija je završena. Mir je nadvladao.
Hoće gospodin Karadžić više niko, neće više niko možda u Srpsku.
Republika Hrvatska proglašuje.
Nemojte da mislite da nećete odvesti Bosnu i Hercegovinu u pakao.
Dear listeners, let me welcome you to yet another episode of Balkan Chronicles series with our special expert guest. Today we have with us again Árpád Párducz, this time uniquely not talking about politics, but we have decided to branch out and bring you current and interesting topic of energy and economy, and it's very much about the Balkans as well, how things are, large investments, large profits are being hindered by local issues, ethnicity issues, and local politics as well. So this is an episode of Balkan Chronicles on South Interconnection between Bosnia and Croatia.
Thank you for the kind invitation, and I will try to do my best to speak about these things, because I think when we are talking about energy politics, the geopolitics are also involved, the national needs are also involved, the national preferences are also involved, and the international preferences are also involved. So it's an interesting topic, and I do my best to answer your questions as best as I can.
So geopolitics meet money meet Balkans. What is there more to like? So let's talk about a bit on what this project is about, and well, I can introduce that. Basically, it's a gas pipeline project. Bosnia and Herzegovina is in a unique position because it's not a EU member country, it's a EU candidate country, and it gets all of its natural gas from abroad. It doesn't have its own supply, and it purchases all of it from its neighbor, from Serbia. Serbia itself is not a producer, it only transfers gas from further, and basically the supplier of that gas, it's Russian Federation. Bosnia would, since 2008, since the famous natural gas crisis, Bosnia was very badly hit. At that time, when the gas flow was stopped suddenly, they got no gas for heating, and it gets very cold in Bosnian mountains during winter. It had no gas for electricity production because some part of its energy production was already from gas, besides coal and chemical products, and and agriculture also needs heating from natural gas. So Bosnia was very badly hit, and it needed to diversify its natural gas needs, and it didn't go anywhere very much. There were projects in mind, diversification from maybe Croatia from the north, but Travnik-Zenica pipeline was almost built. It was actually built to like 90%. All of the infrastructure is there, but then the various parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina got into nasty argument, and the project was never completed. Then it kind of went nowhere, and the parties settled. The gas was somehow supplied from Serbia, but nowadays, with the war in between Ukraine and Russia being waged, no one knows until when, and the sanctions on Russian gas are in place. Bosnians need to find a new solution.
Yes, and thank you for this beautiful introduction. And when we are talking about energy politics and infrastructure politics, it's very important to talk about the needs and money. And when we are talking about needs, we can see that when we are talking about the Western Balkans, it's more integrated into the Southeast European gas market, which is a sub-gas market of the European gas market. And when we are talking about this local Southeast European gas market, we see that there was a huge need of natural gas in this region in the 1990s, and then after that we can see a slowly but steady decline to the 2015s, 2016s, and after that there is the ever steady 16 to 26 to 30 BCM gas needs yearly for this region. And when we are talking about Southeast Europe, we need to clarify that it also includes already EU member states like Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovenia in the gas market terminology, and most of the times they are the biggest consumers of this 26-30 BCM. In fact, 90% of this amount goes to them, and the Western Balkan countries, the 6 countries of the region, are working with the other 10% which remains, and most of the times they don't really use natural gas as a commodity, because most of the time they are used either coal, lignite, or LNG, or even wood most of the times. For example, in the case of Bosnia and Hercegovina, they use lignite and wood mostly. So most of the times they don't need this, and when we are also seeing this from the point of view of the actors in the market, we see a really fractured region with a lot of internal programs and not great infrastructure to build upon. So most of the times the big market players are viewing the Western Balkans in general and Southeast Europe as a whole as a transit region most of the times, because the great, more developed and more bigger consumers are the Western European nations and the South Europeans like Italy, and this leaves the Western Balkans as a very underdeveloped region in regard of natural gas, and it also means that when there is a need of an infrastructural change, there is really few people who can be there or front the bill. So, for example, when Bosnia and Herzegovina or either Croatia need pipeline built or want to build a pipeline, they need outside help, for example, from the different branches of the European Union. But nowadays, thanks to the differences on the European energy agenda, most of the European Union institutions don't want to finance natural gas projects, so this financing way is mostly closed, and this leaves us with really few players, because Russia at the moment doesn't want to build new routes, and the other ones are mainly connected to Southern Europe instead of Southeast Europe.
Yes, you are absolutely correct in these regards, and many of these things are very prominent in what we are talking about in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The one pipeline which was supposed to be active in 2014 was financed like in 75% from European Union funds, when it was still kind of fashionable to buy natural gas from Russia. It was very much supported because natural gas as heating or as source of energy is, after all, very clean compared to either burning wood or burning coal, but because of local reasons this was not to be, and nowadays new project would not be financed with European Union help, but would need local help or some sort of loan. Regarding the country, well, Bosnia energy production, it's a country very rich in rivers and big valleys, so naturally much energy is produced by water power plants, by dams. It's also a country with a large portion of sunny days, so there is a lot of solar energy, and despite promises to phase out coal by 2030, it's very ambitious, but they promised to phase out coal by 2030. They want to replace coal by natural gas, and the project of Southern Interconnection is very much connected to this idea. What does it mean, Southern Interconnection? Well, the primary supplier of gas is, well, the gas would flow from Croatia. It's liquefied natural gas from port, and if you take the map, we are only talking, we cannot show you the map, but it's only a couple of dozen kilometers from Croatia to Bosnia, and it would not take a lot of money or effort for the Croats to build this part of pipeline for Bosnia if there would be a bilateral agreement reached, but in Bosnia it would need at least 170 kilometers to reach the closest connecting point, and from there it could be distributed throughout the country. But any of you who know how Bosnia and Herzegovina works, this is a monumental political issue, because there already is an existing pipeline which runs from Serbia through Republika Srpska, which is part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and through Republika Srpska it passes to the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is a pipeline. The problem is that Republika Srpska purchased 100% of the amount of gas which flows through that pipeline. So basically there is none left for the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So in layman terms, Bosniaks and Croats do not get any gas because the Serbs bought it all. So they have the heating, they can produce electricity, while the rest, especially Sarajevo, the capital, which houses 400,000 people, will get no heating gas for the winter. And this needs to be solved. Regarding electricity, it's not that bad. It's only 3% is produced from natural gas, but the heating is the main problem. So this would be a solution. The country, we can get very technical. Do we?
Maybe, I don't know.
Let's try it. Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it has basically two parliaments, lower house and upper house. The upper house has passed the law on the project, but it's being held up by the other house, which would include the Croats. Basically, the Croats and their party, the HDZ, Croat Democratic Party, they say they would allow this project to go only if they would found new company which would be in charge of distributing the gas through their region, because they don't want to be left out. But Sarajevo or Bosniaks would say, but there is already a company which manages it throughout the federation, BH Gas, and the infrastructure is there and the permissions are there, so why start over? Because they can. The Croats can do it, and they do it. So basically they are kind of blackmailing the whole of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina to fulfill their demands, or otherwise Sarajevo will be very cold during the winter, and it has been like this since 2019. So for 6 years there has been this kind of stalemate. Some things have been agreed upon, some things have not been agreed upon, but the final approvals are still not there. And without the final approvals in the federation, there can be no agreement with Croatia on the final project.
Yes, and starting from the bigger picture first, you mentioned LNG, which means liquefied natural gas, and in the current market, the first and foremost supplier of LNG is the United States, and they are the ones who are actively lobbying with the Bosniaks as well as the Croats to pass these legislations and to work together with Croatia, because for American thinking, the cantons or the Federation of Bosniaks and Croats is presenting new buyer of LNG, so it's naturally good for the Americans, and also it creates a counterbalance to the Russian gas which are entering the country through Republika Srpska from Serbia, which you also mentioned. So these measures for the Americans are also a countering measure to the energy dominance in the region by Russia. So it's really interesting. But when we are looking like the local levels in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we see that there are and there were many different projects to build local parts of pipelines or integrate different towns or different municipalities to existing infrastructure, but most of the times it doesn't pan out because local reasons, bureaucratic reasons, and there were so little money involved, and this is one of the problems. And for a solution for this, which is more in line of the previously mentioned European solution or current European thought of energy politics, is investing in geothermal energy, because geothermal energy is always there, can be extracted from the ground, it can be managed with similar drilling equipment which is needed to extract natural gas or crude oil from the ground. And there are very well pilot projects in Sarajevo, for example, which can manage the district heating of some parts of the capital city of the country.
Yes, well, I do hope that things will move forward either way with geothermal or gas. I experienced myself in 2019 when I was living there. There was a gas shortage and I was out of heating for a week. In the apartment, and when it's -5 degrees outside, it gets quite cold indoors. And one issue Bosnia and Herzegovina faces is not only, well, their internal issues regarding, for example, heating energy, but very little buildings have any sort of insulation. And these are very often old buildings, and very little has been done to renovate them. And there are huge efficiency losses, and the boilers are very old, and the country is still waiting for an investment in this. And so this is something which is being pushed and supported more than new gas projects, but it seems that this is more the line of thinking than following the sort of latest trends in energy efficiency in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes, and improving the energy efficiency of buildings, for example, either residential buildings or governmental municipal buildings, is a very important task, and the European Union can provide funds for this. And I think this is one of the most important section, because this is a project which is needed to be done, and there can be funds that are available to manage it, because most of the times either the municipalities or the country as a whole cannot manage to do it alone in a sufficient enough scale. So I think this is what it's needed to be one of the focal points of the energy strategy of our government in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Actually, it was, but it was part of the growth plan from the European Union, which Bosnia could apply for. And for 2 years in a row, Bosnia and Herzegovina failed to adopt its growth plan, and it was passed just recently at the end of October. And meanwhile, the country lost access to about 200 million worth in investments from European Union. Well, basically because Republika Srpska's ministers on the state level, just for the sake of it, would not allow the plan to be agreed upon, just because they wanted others not to have it either.
Yes, basically we can see that in European Union member states as well, that internal political problems can gridlock the whole political system of the country, and these can create problems in different policy areas, for example in the energy policy, which we just discussing. And in this regard, the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is not a one-of-a-kind problem basically, but yes, it's a sad problem which is happening more and more frequently in the neighborhood of the European Union and also in the European Union itself, but it needs to be the focal point of in any agenda regarding energy that we are needing. If possible, local solutions are needed, for example the geothermal energy, which can provide electricity and heating as well locally, or example more regional solutions. And I know that there are really big strife and really big problems between the Western Balkan 6 countries, but countries of Central Europe, the countries of the wider Southeastern Europe region can have, for example, Romania, Bulgaria, and if not with direct natural gas shipments or direct energy shipments, then with best practices, with trained operators, trained legislators. So basically the knowledge transfer is there, just we need to use it and we need to focus on that, so that we need to make a most of make the most of the resources which are available for us at a given moment.
Yes, one point we forgot to mention why is the Southern Interconnection the best possibility for which mostly the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina is looking for. It's the closeness of the point of the origin of natural gas, because one thing is the price of which you pay for the cubic meter of the natural gas, but the other thing is the transfer. You have to pay for the transmission of gas, and if you have to pay for the transmission of some 745 kilometers through Croatia and the rest goes through your own country, it's fantastic, because if you buy the gas from Serbia, well, you have to take into account not only the price of the gas, but the whole infrastructure which runs for the length of Serbia and the other countries which are connected to the pipeline of origin. So it can rise exponentially. This was, for example, the case of Slovakia. Slovakia made a fantastic profit of transmission of gas from Russia through Ukraine, through Slovakia to other countries. Slovakia is not a big consumer of natural gas, but the transmission was fantastic net profit, which is currently zero because of the war in Ukraine.
Yes, it's really important take, and we need to take out the transmission fees as well, because for example, if we see the wider Southeastern Europe region, many countries, for example Bulgaria, gained really much financial support, so to say, from the transmission fees, and it's a really big help for an economy. And it's also important that you can control these pipelines as well, so it's also a foreign policy leverage, basically, if it's needed to be used. And it's also needed to be said that when we are talking about the direct needs of the given country, for example, in this case, which is Bosnia and Herzegovina, then it's the best possible scenario, which is that you mentioned the small transfer fee from Croatia and then the end use happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but most of the times the pipelines go further to Western or Southern Europe, so the Bosnian government can count on the transfer fees as well, and with these fees in hand they can embark on different other energy related venues which we are just discussed earlier.
Yes, and a bit of a joke later. I was at a conference at the end of September, and there was a discussion about if you held a competition, which would you guess would happen later? Is it a Serbian Jedar project or a Southern Interconnection in Bosnia?
And which was the...
Well, they agreed they would never happen, either of them. So
yes,
that's about... So
sadly,
that's
yes.
the unfortunate Balkans reality, that maybe neither of these in the end, very economically profitable projects will never happen because of not only global, but primarily local politics.
Yes, it's really sad, and these missed opportunities either in the pipelines or in the missed efficiency project, missed other green energy ventures like solar, wind, water, geothermal are continuing to exist in a way that the Western Balkans had a really high air pollution standards, and because of this, every year thousands and thousands die in the region. Because sicknesses related to the polluted air, and also with high energy prices for some ways in connection with the war in Ukraine, the governments need to pay more and more to grant the fair or affordable prices for the constituents. And according to the OECD, between 2019 and 2024, the Western Balkans 6 paid almost 5.2 billion euros to manage or fix the rates of household electricity prices and to keep the electricity prices at the current rates through to 2030. They need to invest another 4.5 billions. So it's a really big economical endeavor for a region which is plagued by economic hardship.
Yes, indeed. I see no easy solutions in sight, only a lot of hard effort, and because geopolitics are not helping anyone currently. Thank you, Árpád, for coming to my podcast again. We got really deep last time into politics of Kosovo, of Albania, of Montenegro, and this time again with you, I would not have it any other way. We got really deep into discussing energy and energy strategy and politics, and I cannot wait to do it again.
Thank you. I hope we will meet again soon.
Definitely we will.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everyone.
Goodbye.